Welcome, marshmallows and junior private detectives, and welcome to Life on Mars, the Veronica Mars Rewatch podcast, where we take you through episode by episode of Veronica Mars. I'm your host, Brenton, and I'd like to introduce my co-host in the comfy chair, Emily. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks, Brenton. Happy to be here.
So we're really excited to finally get started with this. We have the pilot episode to go over today, where we are introduced to Neptune and all of the characters, and I would say within the first 5 minutes. This will be our second time going through this, so to get started, Emily, what were your major takeaways from the pilot episode now that you've watched it for the second time?
Well, I think we can dig into this deeper within the plot, but I think one of my major takeaways was that this show was created by a man, but incorporates a lot of women's fashion from the early 2000s and uses it as part of the plot. Mm-hmm. Like, there's an undergarment that shouldn't have been the undergarment under that outfit. It's a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about wardrobe.
Okay. I don't have answers about wardrobe, but I do know it was written by Rob Thomas.
Yes. That, and I think relationships and developing the relationships that Veronica has and how she utilizes them. It sets her up very well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree there. I wrote down on my notes that I think pretty much the majority of the people that are on screen, minus some refinements to Logan and Weevil, they kind of like really present the characters as they are for like the rest of the series. Like you have a good idea of who Veronica is, especially. But I think you can glean a lot from Keith and Wallace and the sheriff, like pretty much right off the bat. Like those are kind of who those characters are for the rest of the series.
Well, and I would say by the end of the episode, Weevil is who Weevil will be for the rest of the show.
Oh, you're right. Mm-hmm.
The only character that has an arc in this entire series is Logan.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, all right. So we'll be going through kind of episode summaries and then kind of pausing as we kind of dig into different scenes kind of going on. And that'll be kind of the setup for our episodes going forward. But to start, it's immediately a voiceover and pulling into the high school parking lot. And it's... this is actually particularly like looking at the quote now, and then I'll dig in why this is a little more like resonant to me. It's Veronica Mars describes Neptune as a town without middle class. If you live here, your parents are either millionaires or work for millionaires. And so since I grew up right in this area, and it's Oceanside High that they're literally filming at, who are the pirates in real life, it's not like a too inaccurate description.
Yeah, after visiting your hometown, I was like, this does make sense for the location. I think we discussed this before, but did Gossip Girl come out before or after this?
After.
Because I was like, she's real good at voiceovers at this point.
Because this was first, and then she was the voiceover for Gossip Girl.
Gotcha. I wonder if that's why they picked her. I mean, like, if that was part of the...
I mean, maybe. Like, she's got a good, a distinctive voice.
Yes, but still very, like, melodic and calming. Like, it's not off-putting. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's like you can have a really distinct voice, and it can be very uncomfortable to hear.
Yes, Gilbert Gottfried, for instance.
Oh, God, that is not nice.
No, but... Like,
I loved him as a child.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny voice, but, like...
You don't want to wake up in the morning to Gilbert?
Well, it would wake me up for sure.
What's the bird he's in?
Yeah, I was trying to pull it.
Iago?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
All I could think of was Jafar. I'm like, no, that's who he like.
Welcome to our Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert Gottfried.
That was god awful.
I was holding it back the entire time.
I was gonna try, but I can't. All right, sorry. So back to Oceanside. I mean,
yeah. So it's an affluent area, an affluent beach town, and even Oceanside, which was the like slightly poorer community of like where I grew up is still like really nice. I mean, now it's like completely remade over with gentrified. With
Say it like it is.
Yeah, exactly, like craft brew companies, and they've completely redone that downtown. But I mean, especially when we see where she lives at, like in the apartment complex, like that, it's 100% makes sense. Where like the community is made up of like towns, like homes and really nice neighborhoods with like some minor like motels and hotels like thrown in, but that's not like a permanent residence for most of the people who live there. Like middle class isn't really represented there.
Did you notice in the apartment complex that she lives in, they have a pool, but they have fall leaves on the ground? And my only thought was of the Christmas we spent near that area where I was like, the leaves don't change here. And so the entire time, like that first scene, I was just like, are those leaves? Like maybe it's dirt. And I was like, no, it's leaves. And I was like, but what tree? Like there aren't any trees. Like I don't.
And palm trees don't
don't change there. The leaves don't fall off the palm trees?
No, not like that.
Fair. But, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, you're completely right. I didn't even notice that.
I was baffled.
And then we immediately see Wallace taped to a pole, and that's like our first introduction to Wallace.
God bless Wallace.
Mm-hmm. And Veronica Mars cutting him down, which is tremendous.
Did you notice that she's allowed to bring a knife to school? I wrote that down. I was like, I don't remember my handbook saying you could bring a pocket knife, and I lived in a place where you might have like a multi-tool in your pocket because it was out in the middle of nowhere, and you know you were cutting bales of hay before you came to school.
Yeah, definitely not. You would be arrested.
Yeah, I feel like there was a zero tolerance policy on weapons.
Right, exactly.
But I was like, maybe people down there don't care, you know.
No, we definitely care. Well, I mean,
life's rad and all that beat
exactly.
shit.
If Weevil brought it, it'd be a different story.
True. That's another thing I wrote down was like the racism and the racism between like Weevil to aimed at Wallace, and then the racism towards Weevil from everyone else.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We could expand more on that in a sec then.
Rob Thomas is a white man, correct?
Yes.
Is he a blonde white man?
Brown hair.
Oh.
Jotting down for the notes later.
Looks up picture of Rob Thomas.
Right. And then we immediately cut to her sleeping in class, getting woken up, and then reciting back to the teacher. Is it Poe? I wrote down Poe. But in the summary it says Pope, and I could have sworn that it was Poe.
I think it's Pope.
Oh, okay. So I'm completely wrong.
I think you're wrong because I don't think it's Poe. It's not like poetic or anything like that either. It was, and then
it's just her quote of "Life's a bitch and then you die" was like, oh, that can be Poe.
I wrote down on that she's already portrayed as a precocious girl who's too smart for her own good. It's kind of like a like I love Veronica Mars as a character, but it also puts her almost in that like I'm not like other girls box.
Immediately from the jump. Yeah, you were 100% right. Because it's like she's making waves in the class of like.
Well, and I think it shows who she's become because they're trying to juxtapose it from who she was when she was like other girls and she wore denim knee skirts instead of black jackets and
had straight hair and the straight long hair.
Exactly. She had a boyfriend, you know, she's different back then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They weren't having sex though.
That's an important note.
Very. And then we cut to lunch where we're introduced to the O-Niners by her kind of talking about how she used to sit at that table.
And like 3 kids we never meet again.
Right.
It's like, Cheryl? Who's Cheryl?
Right. I was trying to keep an eye out this time if there was any like speaking role characters that get like brought in that are like trying to think how to explain this. Like replaced because like pilots are usually shot way before the series. You know, just seeing anybody, but it was like you bringing that up to me when we were watching it of like, oh, who are all these characters we never see again? We're never introduced to either of the Casablancas brothers.
That's what I just wrote, no Dick or Beaver.
a very different podcast. We don't get blue.
That's their names.
Yeah. But yeah, we just have those
Which is
indisposable people.
so weird considering like the role that they both play.
Right.
Which makes you think that the end wasn't in sight when it was written.
Some might say that your theory is probably correct there. And then we're introduced to Duncan and how he was her boyfriend, but dumped him. He dumped her for no reason.
We never see that breakup. Like
No.
what it actually looked like.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Which is weird. You'd think there would have been like
some sort of significance to like filming that scene.
Yeah, or even just like her flashing back to like that being the point of trauma. But it's not.
Right.
It's weird.
No.
But it comes up all the time. It's like she's fixated on it. Well,
Right.
Rob Thomas is fixated on it.
Right.
Who can blame him? You've seen Duncan.
I have. But then we meet Duncan and it's...
He's like Dean from Gilmore Girls.
But I wrote down... and we'll kind of get into this later. But that Duncan and Logan really don't have a lot of lines in this episode at all. They're just kind of... They have like a few here and there, but they're really not that big.
Logan is, which is ironic because he was only supposed to be on the one episode.
I mean, I guess like he's important, but I don't think there's like very many scenes of him like talking.
Yeah, he harasses her in the car, and all Duncan does is leave her alone. Right. It's very, very helpful, Dunky. And the one at the end, I mean, it's like he talks quite a bit.
I guess so.
I mean, he's no Wallace.
Right. Speaking of, then he joins her at the table, and saying that he's like going to like sit with her, like even that, like, because he doesn't have like any other friends, kind of thing. I forget the exact quote. I don't think I wrote it down. Yeah, I didn't get that one.
All I have from that is when she's talking to him and she explains that there's no police in the town, just sheriffs.
Right.
And I was like, why? Also, how do they divide that labor in other cities if in some cities there's only one? Like, I have a lot of questions.
Right, of how like a sheriff's department would work for like a city like that.
Well,
I guess it's more of like a town.
It's a town.
Yeah.
I don't know the difference. I said that with a lot of confidence, but I don't really know how we differentiate that. Mm-hmm. But just like, there aren't any police. There's just sheriffs here.
Right.
And I'm like, oh.
Which is an elected position. And
so does that mean that technically like the people own the police force? And is it a reflection of the town then that, or the sheriff's department, I mean, that then the town is by default corrupt?
Absolutely.
So then why doesn't everyone just move?
Because, well, but I don't think these people would want to move. Because how it's painted, especially in this one, the quote earlier of like millionaires. Mm-hmm. And when we flash forward to when she is with the sheriff, Veronica, he's like, do you want me to go and bang on like the richest people in town's like doors to try and rattle people out? They aren't doing their job to like protect people that aren't millionaires. So of course these people are like, and then the people that can't move away are the people that are stuck.
That's always the case.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of summarizes the whole, like, there's no middle class.
Right. Exactly. But we can talk a bit more about the sheriff's department in a little bit. And then that's when Weevil first comes over and tells Wallace he's a dead man. And then Wallace tells Veronica exactly, like, what happened at the Sack and Pack.
That also made me think, okay, so like these gang kids are stealing alcohol and all that, but then why did they tie him to the flagpole? Like, they're a gang. Wouldn't they do something different?
Right, rather than like frat hazing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, cool, like Beta Theta Pi got you now.
Exactly. That's, without knowing what exactly it's about, it's like, oh, he must have been like hazed. Or, like,
he
bullied.
joined to the basketball team.
No, instead of being like threatened.
Yeah, he's actually under attack from motorcycle gang of teenagers.
Right, exactly.
Also, are there any adults in this gang?
Huh. It's like Lord of the Flies.
Oh, God.
Motorcycles. Yeah, so he recounts that the two PCH members stole alcohol, and he pressed the silent alarm when he saw them coming over with it. Which is even before they like left, and then they put the $1 down on the counter, like trying to like say this is enough. But when he's harassed by the police and they're coming to arrest the two, and the rest of the motorcycles gang is there, Wallace backs down and tells them that, oh no, nothing happened here. And then the sheriff gives the ridiculous quote of which he uses twice. I think Rob Thomas must have thought this was amazing. It was, go see the wizard to get some backbone.
I can't imagine an adult male in an elected sheriff position making a Wizard of Oz pun at a child. It's like, it's one of those suspension of belief things that you just have to like get behind for this show. But I was like,
yeah,
wow, like the corrupt sheriff, he's so mean, he's a bully. Like,
right. And I don't know if it's intended, but it kind of lines up with just like how big of a dirtbag character he is.
mm-hmm.
And just what kind of a goon he is too.
Yeah.
But
and it's never brought up again. No one ever uses that line again.
not after
It's
this
only in the
episode.
pilot.
Yeah. Use it twice. And I did want to bring up that Wallace has an amazing like picnic shirt. It had like a logo on the back, which must mean that Sack and Pack has uniforms.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a button-up picnic shirt, and he's got his name tag on the front, and then like at one point it shows like the back, and there's like some like pressed logo thing on the back. I don't know. I
Wow.
was quite impressed.
Yeah, I've never heard of a mini mart having
Yeah,
uniforms.
it's pretty good.
Also, if he's new to town, how did he already get a job?
Good question. Jobs before school, I
Yeah,
guess.
he got there and he started sitting his resume out, just like the boomers tell you. Like, go and ask in person.
Yeah, exactly. And he got it. You know, he's a hardworking boy, pulling himself up by his bootstraps. Good for
Also,
him.
then his mom let him work at this sketchy liquor store. Like, once we meet her as a character, I don't...
Right, where she's like more protective.
And
Yeah.
he never goes back to work, does he?
I mean, we'll see. Maybe he does.
I don't
Maybe we
remember
just
that.
don't remember it. You know. But yeah.
And that was the day Wallace quit.
Exactly. Well, I mean, wouldn't you?
I don't know. You making your $8 an hour. You're selling juicy fruit to the kids around the corner. Sometimes the gang comes in.
A few bad apples don't ruin it.
Also, are there any rival gangs? It's just this motorcycle gang.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Later. The Fitzpatricks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then Veronica heads home, and she's sitting by the pool and has a flashback.
She's not sitting by the pool. She's walking.
Oh,
You mean
right.
something? She's out there lounging in the fall leaves.
And she has a flashback of, I don't think it's really a flashback. It's more like a daydream thing where it's Duncan's in the pool and tells her like, hey, this is like our song, and like some songs playing. And then she sees her mom and like a group of friends like bringing out a cake for her.
Well, the song actually is playing upstairs in the neighbor's room.
Right.
And it must have been her and Duncan's song. And so I feel like that's what triggers it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I thought I think it was a memory because her hair was long.
Oh, okay.
And all Veronica's memories from before her traumatic event, which was not her best friend dying. It was her getting sexually assaulted. Because I mean, insult to injury. You gotta rape her to make her interesting, just like Game of Thrones.
Also, I was surprised that there was only one scene with Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, she wasn't really supposed to be in the show.
Yeah, I just thought there were more flashbacks of Lily Kane. But,
They come later
yeah.
as we solve the mystery. But yeah, she had the long hair, so we knew that was a real memory.
Okay.
That's my theory.
Yeah, that lines up. I think just because of how it ended, I was like, oh, it's a dream sequence because it's like mom, and then it's like no, it's like the woman like asking for Veronica. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, It could very well be like just a memory. But I did write...
Also, we never see that neighbor again.
No. Just off.
Just gone.
Yeah, she could have moved. She was done. But I made a note here for... I started keeping track of the music. Because this is what I termed 2000s indicators. Like that early 2000s. So a lot of the music is like that low, like kind of like low rumble bass, like almost like lounge-ish electronic music, which is like very vocal heavy.
Yeah, there was part that had lyrics that were super distracting. It's when she's doing the photography.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, so like, are we singing the song, or are we gonna like have a voiceover? Like, what's happening?
Right, and there's like the entire pilot, like, and like in the show going forward has a ton of this type of like that like low key electronic music, from like the early 2000s. That's almost like is it more adjacent to like rock music than it is like actual like dance music. And then also bringing in other 2000s indicators, which you mentioned earlier, the fashion.
Yes. What was so strange is in the flashbacks, she's dressing very girly.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I wouldn't argue that that was the same time frame. Like, I feel like that was older, girlier. It was like she was still not quite on trend. Because, like, if you even look at what, like, Samantha Seyfried is wearing. Oh, my God. Amanda Seyfried is wearing. I was like, I don't know her. She's a little bit more, like, trendier or, like, a little more scantily clad. And then you have, like, this very, like, pure Veronica with, like, her long knee-length skirts and her white dress and...
Right, very virginal.
Very innocent. And then... she goes bad.
Right.
But then again,
Baggy
I guess
pants.
she is, when she's on the dance team, she is wearing the like short shorts and the because it's a car wash.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she runs into the house when they find Lily Kane dead and she runs in to see Duncan, she's wearing shorts, Ugg boots, and a sweater, which is a true marker of the early 2000s.
Right.
I just have like this image in my head of Britney Spears in that outfit. And then like Paris Hilton in that outfit.
Right.
So I truly think they embodied it towards the end. But there's some flashbacks that I'm like, I don't know who picked this. But maybe it was the thing and I just missed it.
Yeah, could be. No, but there's a lot of greens and pinks. There's like that Hollister colors.
Well, the school's colors are green.
Well, the like the lighter green. Like the lighter like green that you'd find at like a Hollister. That was more of
like a lime green.
Yeah, almost, and then like a hotter pink, like together, and then at a certain point she's wearing like cargo pants and like jean jacket.
Well, but that's once she's gone rebellious.
Right. Just general 2000s fashion trends.
Yeah, and it is interesting because it's like, yeah, once she has been assaulted, because that's her turning point for fashion, she dresses more like masculine and boxy, more like a man. Which is just, it's like, and no one in your family was like, huh, this is a little weird. Wonder why she's doing this.
Right.
It didn't happen right after her friend died. It happened like a month later.
Right.
It's strange. It's very strange.
Yeah. I could see Keith just rolling with it.
True. Well, but the mom wasn't gone. Oh, she was gone. She had already left by the time of the party.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
Right?
I think you're right.
The mom, that's a big thing we should dig into as we go.
Yes. And so she then goes to... I'm skipping a beach scene here, but it's just real quick where she just sees Waltz on the beach. But then she goes to...
Flying his plane.
Very true.
It's a prop plane. Does he ever do that again?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Not like often. But
It comes up in the college season.
Totally. He's an engineer.
I didn't put that together until we rewatched this. And I was like, oh, he...
has shown an interest in the past. Yeah. She then goes to her dad's office and sees Celeste Kane's car parked outside. And before she exits her dad's office, The lawyer. Okay, so now I have his name. The lawyer, sleazy lawyer, comes in. Cliff McCormick.
He's not sleazy. He works for the people.
True.
He's a public defender for criminals.
Yes.
And
it just goes about things not always in the most.
he goes
upright way.
underboard.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like it's a corrupt town, and he's just playing the game like everyone else.
True.
And he usually has his client's best interest in heart.
Yeah.
Which, when
exactly.
you're a public defender, I could see really not being priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this fictional world. I'd hope real public defenders have a lot more
Right.
compassion. But
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough job. And they're probably not quite as interesting as him. And gives her / her dad a case. And I didn't notice this the first time, but that he treats Veronica doing cases like an open secret rather than just like open, where it is like later it's like, oh, Veronica's doing cases. Like at this point he's like, oh, like how is it that like he's going after bail jumpers and all these other cases are getting solved? And I was like, oh, okay, they're like playing coy about it at first.
well, yeah, because she's supposed to be like 16.
Right.
I think even then he kind of has like it proves that he's not as sleazy. Like he's got a moral compass in terms of like, I'm not gonna say that the 16-year-old should do the thing, but
Right.
here's the thing: if you want to do it, child.
Mm-hmm. And then, but if you want to see about this, like I'm representing a dancer at this like bar, like club, and like they have like a low, like their loose ID policy. If you want to go check that out, which plays into stuff later. And then that's when Celeste leaves, and kind of vaguely hints that I need you to go do something, Keith, and then like I hate being here, like I wish I didn't have to come into this office, and leaves. But that's when we're first introduced to Keith.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, they introduce him to us with a secret,
Mm-hmm.
which is just really a true representation of their entire relationship. I'm not telling you this to protect you, and I'm not telling you that to protect you.
Right. Which is the frustrating part about it, because otherwise they're on such equal terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one part I did notice, that it's like great, like seeing that like right out the gate, like them like giving each other shit like immediately, and like Keith treats her like more of an adult than I feel like a normal like 16-year-old would usually get and stuff, which I think is pretty great. I understand like that part, the protector, but like he even hints in that scene of like, hey, don't follow after her, don't go after Jake Kane. But when you do, because he knows he's not going to be able to stop her, like, you know, make sure you bring backup.
The dog.
Yes.
I love Backup. Is Backup the same dog in the pilot than he is in the rest of it? I was trying to identify.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they keep backup.
I was like, I don't know if this is the same Pibble or Rottweiler. Pibble.
Pibble.
He's a mix, I think.
Yeah. Pretty big.
It's interesting, too, that even in that later season, Veronica always has a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a true testament to her character.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Also, she's a very small person, so having a big dog is important.
Totally.
According to Rob Thomas.
Right. But yeah, I immediately liked the Keith-Veronica relationship.
Yeah, well, and I think it's pivotal to the entire plot.
Mm-hmm.
And that relationship is built on a trust that the other is doing the best they can with what they've got, but with also like a heavy set of baggage.
Yeah, completely.
And secrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which I get is part of the mystery leading up for it, but it's always weird when they have to keep secrets from each other.
Well, but like Veronica doesn't tell him about her sexual assault.
Right. Don't like it.
Mm-mm.
Right. But that scene kind of ends is where it's like, hey, like, don't do anything about it. But if you do,
yeah,
be careful. And that's, I think it's cut to Veronica following Jake Kane. because that's, what Keith was hired to do. And that's when we get the flashback to Lily at the car wash with Veronica and telling her that she has like a major secret, like a really good one.
Yeah. I was trying to think if they ever like re-show that flashback and like, do they?
Mm-hmm. When it, yes, toward the end of the first season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want like a scene where Veronica's like, the secret was XYZ.
Right. There is like where she's like piecing things together and it's like, oh, right. She had a secret.
Because she's very happy about it.
Right. And I think it probably comes back up when we're following some red herrings too. But I know it does, at least at the end of the season. Yeah. And then in that same flashback, that's when we get to Lily's murder at the Kane household, with her dad, Keith, then a sheriff at the time, arriving on the scene, and her running up to Duncan, and Duncan giving her no answer about what happened.
Yeah.
He's like catatonic.
He's catatonic, but also I know it's part of like the whole plot and partially of the red herrings is for him to not be responsive. But like, what an infuriating scene.
Yeah.
Like, say something. Like, even just like, oh, Lily's dead. Like, that would have been helpful.
Right.
Or like, maybe don't go in the backyard.
Right.
Like, you let your girlfriend walk out there to see your dead sister. Because you didn't say anything. Because you were upset.
Right.
I get it. But like, I don't get it. Yeah, like, no. I don't know. I don't like Duncan.
No.
I never liked Duncan.
Mm-mm. I'm not a big fan either.
Send him out to Mexico.
And then she mentions, but we don't get into. So I think we can at least just jump ahead here. Jump around in the plot a little bit. That's where she mentions that, oh, everybody remembers the bungling sheriff. And it's like, ooh, cut to commercial here, like stinger. But what ended up happening is he goes after Jake Kane.
Her dad.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Who's a very important person in the community. His company, Kane Software, had something to do with streaming video. They
invented streaming.
Oh, thank you. So thank you to Kane Software. And the people were extremely discouraged by him going after Jake Kane, such an important person in the community. And then,
and because it was his daughter that was dead,
right?
So people are like, "Ooh, that's not cool." But also, statistically, highly likely.
Gotcha. And then that's when we get the scene of her mom breaking up with Keith, divorcing and leaving. And then when Keith's going to break the bad news to Veronica, that's when on the TV, the one guy is being arrested because they found...
That's not true. She says, no. Seeing the scene of them finding Lily's murderer is true, but the dad tells her that they're going to work it out. Your mom and I'll figure it out or work it out. Yeah.
Oh.
And I don't think there's no like black and white, like they're divorced. I don't know if they get divorced or not.
Right.
Like legally. But there's no like, I'm divorcing you.
Right. But she like leaves and it's like a breakup.
Yeah. She leaves. There's a difference. And I think that's why he
to tell her that like she was gone.
Yeah. I think she was like leaving, but they were going to work it out. Like she needed to go cool off.
Okay.
Because I think that's part of the problem with that relationship as the season goes on is like Keith is waiting for her to come back because that's what he believes.
Right. Yeah, okay. All right. I can buy that. And then that's when he was ousted out of office after that. Oh, sorry. The person who was arrested, Abel Kuntz, was an employee of Kane Software.
But was fired before the big boom. So before everyone went to be millionaires, right down to the secretary.
Oh, right.
That was one of my favorite things when Veronica's spying on
Jake Kane.
Yeah, Jake Kane. And she's like, yeah, like then he became a billionaire the day they went public, and everyone down to the secretaries became millionaires. So like everyone in this town owes their fortune to Jake Kane. And
That's not usually how that works. I don't think secretaries get bonuses like that.
well, or I mean like stock options is what they're referring to.
Right.
But then wouldn't there be even more rich kids than there are? I don't know. I have a lot of questions. That's a big building.
Right.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Kane Softwares.
I have bad feelings about them. Mm-hmm.
But at least they had the respect to only make a 3-story building.
Exactly. You are correct there. So while she's spying on Jake Kane, all the PCHers pull up. And that's when they start like kind of like surrounding her and like hassling her.
Well, and she's spying on him at the Camelot, which is the seedy hotel where the bad things happen.
Right. And they all pull up on her and
Weevil et al.
Yeah, exactly, and like give her shit. But she buys time for Wallace to like not be harassed by them for a week. And then while Weevil is making like remarks about her, like being a slut and all that, that's when like we get the flashback of her rape, where she's wearing the white dress and a choker and long hair and goes to Shelley Pomeroy's party where everybody just looks on her in disgust.
I also think part of that is like how they wanted to film it so it was how she felt versus like how it actually was.
Yeah. I can buy that.
But then the whole like rum, coke, and roofies.
Yeah. Someone passed her a drink and she gets roofied.
It's interesting too the way they filmed it. It looks like she's taking a drink from somebody.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
Like I'm taking your rum and coke. Like maybe the drugs weren't for her.
Like she's, like just swooping a cup from somebody's hand.
Yeah. Like, 1, always pour your own drink. 2, don't take drinks from people you don't look in the eye.
So she passes out and wakes up the next morning. And kind of does walks out of the house like crying and just kind of broken.
Well, because she sees her white underwear on the floor that she was wearing with a sheer white dress. And when she got to the party, you could not see the underwear through the dress. But when she walks home the next morning, you can see the underwear through the dress. Because I think they look more like white bathing suit bottoms. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like a pool party and it's a bathe. Like, I don't understand what's happening with the undergarments here. But it doesn't make sense. And Veronica Mars does not seem like the type of girl that would have walked in with her underwear on the outside.
No.
So I have a lot of questions about her outfit, let alone who took off her underwear without her consent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Exit flashback. Jake Kane leaves Camelot and we see a woman's hand, but no woman. So we know that he's seeing someone. We don't know who.
And we don't know about what.
But Veronica does take pictures of the license plate on the car. The woman, sorry, not Jake Kane's. The woman's license plate. The next day.
Well, if we don't see the woman leave, how do we know it's her car? Couldn't it be someone else at the Camelot?
I think it's an empty lot. Or am I wrong?
I don't know.
I could have sworn there was like only like one other car.
Oh. Camelot's not doing so well. How they staying open? I know. Jake Kane?
Exactly, yeah. Doing his midnight rendezvous.
We'd think he'd go somewhere where there'd be other people.
Or out of town.
Yeah. If you're that well known in this town, don't you think you'd...
Right.
San Diego's not that far.
Or he just thinks he's impervious. True. Yeah. Ousted as sheriff. The next day is when we get Logan harassing her.
He has the same car the entire series.
Yeah.
It just changes a little. The Jeep.
Yeah.
The yellow Jeep.
Yellow Jeep SUV thing. And yeah, just immediately sets Logan up to just be like an asshole.
The worst.
Yeah, just the worst. He is just the worst in this episode. And hats off to Jason Dohring because he's really good at playing someone who is like just the worst.
The worst, it's like it's got a certain like amount of confidence and almost like swagger to it too.
Yes.
It's like but it's not aloof. It's not like the I don't care. It's like the like calculated.
Yeah.
The worst.
Like he is targeting like very specific like insecurities.
And when he gets caught with the bong and he knows it's her from the locker check, he doesn't get mad. Like he's just like, I'm coming for you.
Right.
Which there's a certain amount of like confidence and also like terrifying like energy behind that.
Absolutely. He's definitely scary.
But he's real cute.
Oh yeah, of course. He's got his puka shells. His collared shirts.
True. We should really count the puka shells in the series and see how many we get.
I think he wears them throughout the entirety. But then we get the nice moment where Wallace sits with Veronica and he's like, hey, you should hear what they say about you.
Yeah. What a dumb boy thing to say.
It really is.
Like, do you know people think you're awful?
But I still want to sit with you.
But I don't know. You are sitting here alone and it seems like you cut me down from this pole. Also, people say a lot about her, but then she still has so many connections in the school. I didn't realize that until this watch and like then thinking back.
Right.
It's like she's got that kid who makes the bong for her to plant in Logan's locker in the whatever the class is, sculpting or ceramics or whatever. It's like she's got connections outside of the adults.
Yeah, and it's not I think some of this first season is her like it kind of disguises that it's like, oh, she's building up a network by doing favors for all these people, but like some of it's kind of built in.
Yeah.
It's not like quite as against her as maybe it's written.
Well, and I mean, like she's got the fire department on her back. We never hear from them again, though.
Right.
Another group.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. I was
all.
just like, how did they switch the evidence? But
right. Somehow.
the fire chief.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the chief, right?
I think so. Connections, man. Right. But then that's where we get the next scene of like, all right, we're going to get back at the PCAsters, which is getting back at Logan also. So they she gets the guy to make the bong and plants it in Logan's locker. But first, she downloads pictures from the Camelot and has that like tense scene with her dad of like, hey, you should leave this alone, because he sees the license plates and maybe knows something off the pictures, but like doesn't tell her, and tells Veronica to just drop it.
Do you think that dad thinks that the mom killed Lily at some point?
Maybe he's not ruling it out.
Just
You
throwing it out there.
Yeah. And then she follows up on the sleazy lawyer's case and takes a video, but we don't see of what.
I think we should stop calling him sleazy.
Sorry.
I like him.
McCormick.
Yes. Just like the spices.
Eggs.
He's like a pumpkin pie.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. And then the next day is when we see Logan getting his locker searched, finding the bong, and that exact exchange of him staring her down like, I'll get you back.
Yeah. Also, so you know how it opens with the guy from the sheriff's department being part of the locker search and being like, oh, Veronica, this should be fun.
Oh, right.
The first time I watched the show, I thought that it was because he had worked for her dad and he had like told her about it, but I now realize that he is a bad person.
Right.
Because he plays that middle realm.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Right.
But so then someone else at the sheriff's department is telling her.
Mm-hmm.
But we never find out who.
No.
Interesting.
Like someone giving her like a heads up on
about
that.
the locker sweeps.
Mm-hmm. Like, what would even have been in there?
Yeah.
Maybe she just knows she's being targeted already. Maybe this is like the third or fourth time.
No, but she's like, oh, I know even before the principal.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
But so then I was like, oh, he must tell her. And then I was like, oh,
no,
he doesn't tell her.
Because that's like the picture there is like, haha, I got you.
Well,
You're
no,
busted.
I meant the guy from the sheriff's department.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that he tells her, but he does not.
Oh, no. Yeah, because they're not like working hand in hand.
They're not friends.
And then the next part is where they go to the sheriff's department to switch out the tapes. So they set off the bong, lighting a fire, and then the fire department comes in, and Veronica asks one of them to switch it out.
Which, like, isn't... I guess when you have a corrupt sheriff department, no one's going to worry about anything else in terms of, like, playing by the rules.
Right.
But I'm like, what an interesting thing for another, like, city official to do.
To change out, like, tapes. Yeah.
It's interesting.
And then the next scene is where she calls the sheriff's department, pretends to be the receptionist, and figures out it's her mom's car.
I do love that. And then I love how they immediately introduce us to that receptionist so that you're not like, why is she using this accent?
Right. Inga. The receptionist. And then there's another tense exchange between Keith and Veronica, where Veronica just walks out.
Well, yeah, because she's like, oh, like, why did you want me to not fall on this case? And he's like, oh, because corporate espionage. And it's like, no, because it's your mom's plates. But he doesn't want to say that. But he knows she knows. So I don't know why he doesn't just say,
right.
like, oh, I know you got into my files, so it's your mom.
Well, she hadn't even gotten in the files yet.
I know you get into my files.
Right.
So it's your mom. And, you know, we don't really know what's going on there. And
right.
if someone was honest with her from a younger or earlier stage, it would change the story.
Yeah. So the next scene is where we're introduced to Inga, and there's the flashback of her going to the police, which
the sheriff. They don't have police.
Oh, yep. You're right. You're right. Going to the sheriff, and where he doesn't believe that she's been raped and says, "What do you want me to? Do you have someone in mind?" And she can't give him a suspect. And it's like, do you want me to just go around and knock on, like, all the most important people's doors in this town and, like, try and rattle someone out?
Well, I don't think
and he uses the wizard line.
I don't think it's that he doesn't believe her. I think it's he doesn't care.
I think it's both.
I think he believes it, and I think it's more of like a, well, like, you know, don't be who you are.
Right.
It's your fault for being you.
Yeah.
It's victim blaming.
Which is a smart thing to include here, I think. Even if you're gonna go along with the rape plot, like, you know, having the police not believe her. Sheriff.
Just Mr. Lamb.
Yep, Sheriff Lamb. And then we go back to the present day in the courtroom, where Sheriff Lamb is testifying that they caught the two PCHers, and like, oh no, we have video evidence to prove it.
Of them stealing the alcohol at Wallace's convenience store.
Yeah, the second pack.
Second pack.
And then they put in the tape, and it's his officer picking up a dancer at the club. And then that's where, like, the PCHers get off, and McCormick's other case gets off, too.
How did the PCHers pick their name?
Pacific Coast Highway. So, the Pacific Coast Highway, that's like the one up here in Northern California, where that goes down along the coast. It goes all the way down to Southern California, and that's like the road that goes right along the beach.
But they decided to name their gang after it?
They're a motorcycle gang, and they're on that's where they just live and ride, I'm assuming.
I just feel like it's very timid.
Yeah, I think maybe the reasoning is that they own the PCH, so it's theirs. They're like claiming it.
Okay. I can get behind that, I guess.
Right. But they're not like the I can't even come up with a motorcycle gang name. Hell's Angels.
I was like, oh God.
My life flashed before my eyes. After that, go to the beach, see Wallace, and that's where we get the first instance of Wallace calling her a marshmallow.
Yes, I wrote that down because I was like, oh, like it's the first time someone says that, because then that's what the fan base ends up calling themselves.
Exactly.
And
ironically, it's like, oh, you're so soft, Veronica.
Do you think that means she's also like burnt on the outside?
Nah.
Like she's like a roasted marshmallow.
I don't like that.
No, too far.
I mean, you could be 100% right.
Thank you.
And then that's when Logan and his friends show up, and he quotes the Beach Boys at her.
Is Duncan there for that?
No.
I didn't think so, but it's weird when you see Logan without Duncan at this point.
Right. And it's it's just the other random hooligans that we never see again.
Yeah, I really need a Dick Casablancas right about now.
Right.
Like, he would have been perfect for that scene.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I wrote it down, I think for the most part of, like, the actors really sell it, and the script moves along that you don't really, like, get too bogged down on it. The pop culture references are all super, super hokey, but, like, somehow they, like, work. Like, Logan quoting that his dad took his T-bird away and that he won't have fun. And it's, like, slightly threatening. It's like, okay, this is, like, hokey, but this, like, kind of works.
Well, and it works for the character that they've created for Logan, where it's, like, he's from this very famous and, like, unique situation where he's part of the entertainment industry, but he's not part of the entertainment industry.
Right. Mm-hmm. Adjacent.
Mm-hmm. So I think it fits for Logan.
Yeah.
Also, it shows his charm a little.
Yeah, totally.
And wit, I guess, which also then is what makes him terrifying.
Exactly. He's using it you're turning the Beach Boys into a weapon. And they smash her headlights. But then that's when the PCHers come up and defend Veronica and harass, beat up his car, beat up Logan, because Logan won't back down until Veronica tells him to stop. The prep boys, the 09ers, leave. And then that's when you get the exchange of, like, why Weevil helped her out. It's like, oh, like, you helped get my boys off of this case. Also, like, so now we can be, like, friends, or at least friendly.
Well, and they never exclusively say it, which I think is key. A lot of her relationships are implied. They're unspoken.
Right.
Which is kind of sad. And I think what makes her feel isolated as a character. Wallace is the only character that truly, like, acts like a friend.
That's true.
Everyone else is like, it's like a tick for tat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Right. And it's like when he's like, oh, like, I heard that tape went missing. And she's like, oh, like, I wonder what, like, she always plays coy at the beginning.
Right. Like, wink, what did happen to it?
Uh-huh.
And I think, yeah, that's where, after Weevil apologizes to Wallace holds on to the tape. It's like, very endearing moment for him.
Yeah, I think it's important, because if not, then you've given away your power.
Mm-hmm. And Wallace knows it.
Well, and it shows that in that community, having dirt is power.
Totally.
Which is kind of what drives the entire plot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then Veronica heads back to her father's work for Mars investigations and pulls out all the files on Lily Kane. And Keith then enters, because we don't learn anything. She just, like, kind of, like, holds on to it for future reference.
They do that a lot in the first season, and it infuriates me. I'm like, I just want to see the paper.
Yeah.
Let me read it.
And then that's when she's like, "Oh, I'll catch up with you later, Dad," and goes to the Camelot, and we get her final voiceover saying like, "Veronica Mars is a marshmallow."
Yeah. That was a cute way to end it, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that they give us marshmallow early.
Yes. I didn't like picked up on that the first time, so I was like, "Oh, right in the first episode."
Me neither, but you do know that after the end of that last season, everyone on Twitter called themselves burnt marshmallows when they were mad about it. So it's fitting.
It's fitting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's a key part from the very beginning. So I think it's very it's important.
Yeah. So any final thoughts? Approval, disapproval? What do you think of the pilot revisiting?
I mean, 10 out of 10 would watch again. I still think Rob Thomas is a sexist. Or at least writes in a manner that is sexist. I don't want to attack him personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's also kind of racist the way they set up Weevil.
Yeah, the entire PCHers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a like a very caricature way of like Latinx community.
Well, and especially that they're like it's a biker gang. Like, why can't it just be like kids that like to ride motorcycles together?
Right. Or just
I mean, even their name, like if they were the PCHers, like they don't have to refer to them as a bike gang. Couldn't they have just been like a group of kids that called themselves that, like the 09ers?
Right. Or that could be, I mean, grown up in that area. I mean, you can, it's not like great, but it could almost be like that name could almost be like the name for like what they call like Latin kids, like Latinx kids. You know what I mean? 'Cause, like, instead of just like, oh, there's the Mexican kids, it's like, oh, that's the PCHers. Like, that's like the nickname for the group or something.
Also, what kind of car does Veronica have? Because, like, she lives a life of poverty, sure. But she's got, like, a cool car.
Yeah. It looks kind of old, like, used-ish.
Uh-huh, but it's still a car.
Yeah, you're right.
Trying to think if there's anything else. No, I do think it's interesting that they set her change as a character on the night of that party and not when Lily dies. Because you would think, from my perspective, your best friend being murdered and that causing your boyfriend to break up with you is significantly more traumatic than like being drugged at a party. But they're both obviously very traumatic.
Yeah.
It's like, why did we need to have a second trauma on top? Wasn't one enough?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think you're right there too. Because it's like the button on her entire change, and like, I'm no longer that girl anymore.
It's her catalyst.
Yeah, because it's like best friend dies, family life falls apart, dad loses job, and then losing boyfriend before any of the family stuff, and then she's raped, and it's like you can almost see like her trying to put herself back out there and getting scorned at the party, and even just made fun of or laughed off could be like a change.
Yeah.
It just like that could be, she's like, I'm gonna try and like work through this, but not have it be rape to then like, oh, I'm like hardened. It's like it could just be like scorned and like losing everything.
Yeah, wasn't that enough? Yeah. Hasn't Veronica been through enough?
Exactly.
I think I'm just protective over her.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of problems, but it's an extremely entertaining pilot, and it sets up the world really well of the show and Veronica herself. And while there's stuff that we discussed that isn't good with Weevil's representation and her rape, I think it's a great introduction to the show overall.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's also a reflection of that time and like what television was in the early 2000s and how women were portrayed in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So I
She's
wish they had done better, but I am not surprised by it.
No. And I think we have the benefit of seeing the rest of the series and knowing that maybe some of that stuff isn't just like we don't have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
True.
Because we know that it's like, oh, this isn't like, oh, well, maybe it'll like change over time. Like she's still like, I'm that plucky, independent girl, and that makes me different from all these other women.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm ready for episode 2 then.
Yeah. All right. We will be back next week with episode 2. So.
Do you know what episode 2 is called? This one's just called Pilot.
Yes. Give me 2 seconds.
I was very disappointed by that. I wanted it to be called We Used to Be Friends, since that's the theme song.
Oh, that would have been good.
It would have been a good pilot. Are all pilots just called Pilot?
Not always. I think maybe around this time that could be true. I think a lot of them are. Okay, so next week's episode is Credit Where Credit's Due.
I don't remember anything about that.
I don't either.
So
This
good.
will be fun.
All right.
Well, we will see you next week. And for now, stay not burnt marshmallows.
Be unburned.
Yes. Be only golden brown.
Make a good s'more.